Kariokor is a popular street name in Nairobi. There's also Kariokor here in Voi, in Tanzania too. The word Kariokor originated from the English words Kariokors. So, let me tell you a story about the East African campaign of World War One and the role of the Kariokors in the Great War. The First World War started with the assassination of the Hungarian prince, who was the heir to the throne. This set off a chain of events that ended in global conflict and then all-out war. The war started in Europe, but Africa wasn't spared. In East Africa, fighting ensued between British and German forces who colonized the region. This came to be known as the East African Campaign of World War One. The campaign began in November 1914 when British naval ships invaded the port of Tanga. This was called the Battle of Tanga, but on that day, bullets were not the only thing flying after soldiers hit a beehive and brought the bees to battle. For this reason, the battle is also known as the Battle of the Bees. The Battle of Tanga is one of the most notable failures in the history of the British military. In the battle, the British allied force of 9,000 men was defeated by a smaller army of 1,000 askaris of the German Protection Forces, also known as the Schutztruppe. The British forces not only suffered several casualties, but also left behind nearly all their weapons, ammunition, and supplies for the German Protection Forces to salvage. This allowed the General von Lettow-Vorbeck, who led the German Protection Forces, to rearm his askaris with modern rifles and ammunition. After this, he launched an offensive towards British territory, invading the Savo into Taita County. This went down as the first successful invasion of British territory by German forces. The German army wanted to sabotage the essential Mombasa-Uganda railway, and their closest target was Voi Station. Voi Town served as the last line of defense. British forces received reinforcements and supplies via Voi railway station. However, lack of roads and the presence of successful in the region made transport to the front lines impossible. To overcome this, the British recruited 600,000 Africans to carry supplies across the Savo to the front lines of battle. Of the 600,000 carriers, 45,000 were recruited from Kenya, and that was a third of the male population in Kenya at the time. These carriers came to be known as the carrier corps, thus the origin of the name Kariokor, which was given to the places where they lived. The carrier corps are said to have been instrumental in helping the British forces win the war in East Africa. British forces suffered several humiliating defeats against General von Lettow-Vorbeck armies of askaris and guerrilla tactics. But because of the carrier corps, British forces were able to resupply quicker than the German army. Ultimately, they overwhelmed the German force of askaris and drove them out of British East Africa territory. But the carrier corps not actually fighting the war. They had to transport goods across the hostile Savo. Many of the carriers died of disease and attacks from wild animals, like the man-eater. At the end of the war, disease and Mother Nature claimed more victims than the war itself. War grave memorials like the War Cemetery were dedicated to the soldiers who fought, but carriers who suffered the most casualties were forgotten and did not get a memorial for their sacrifices. General von Lettow-Vorbeck became prominent after this war. He surrendered at the end of the war, but his army remained undefeated. Although the general is remembered as a racist figure, he respected his loyal askaris. In his burial in 1964, two askaris who served under him were called to attend, and askaris who hadn't received compensation for their participation in the war were finally granted their pensions. The late general is also said to have been the only person brave enough to face Hitler and tell him to go fuck himself. In many ways, the war ended up shaping the future of East African countries. The war boosted trade in British East Africa, while most of German East Africa was left in death, disease, and ruins. Indigenous communities also came to the realization that white Europeans were not as superior as they thought, and so began the fight for independence. I used to find history boring, but uncovering such stories makes me find it intriguing. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, Mzee, nitoke